Hark! Before we start, a warning for the squeamish. This is a story about the fall of mankind and of faces ripped off skulls and eaten since, but it's also about faith. I'm talking about We Have Demons, a series from Dark Horse Comics, brought to you by the award-winning fan favorite team of Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, who I'm hanging with today. What's up, Greg? What's up, Scott?
Morning.
What's
Hey
going
man,
on?
how are you doing? Thanks for having us.
No, thanks for coming on, man. I know it's early, but I appreciate you guys taking the time to just talk comics with me, which is always fun, right?
Sure.
Always, brother.
So let's talk about We Have Demons. Neither of you are strangers to the horror genre, right? But on the surface, that's what this book feels like. But what is We Have Demons really about? What's the elevator pitch? And I'll start with you, Scott. What can you tell us?
Yeah, man. Well, I wanted to do a book with Greg that would have all of the fun of the stuff that we did at DC, all the bombast and all of the kind of over-the-top action, and feel like a horror book as well, because much of our stuff, I think, on Batman and Metal and all of that had a horror element. But I wanted to do something that, we both have teenage kids. My son actually turns 15 today, my oldest son. I can't believe it.
Nice.
But, during the pandemic, we really bonded over watching things together that, I grew up on, things that he could now watch getting a little older. And so I wanted to make something with this that felt like horror on the surface and felt like something that was like Saturday morning cartoons on steroids, but that had a message that I thought he could relate to and that parents and kids could relate to together. And that message for this is that even though things look almost impossibly dark at times, and it seems like we're more bad than good, and in the mythology of our series, more of this element is hitting the earth every year that changes people into these monsters. There's still reason to be hopeful. You have to be able to find faith, both in humanity and in yourself, in a way of, and it's something bigger than you, so that you can make something better than we were able to make as parents. And that's the hope, is that our kids are going to make things brighter and better than we were able to do, even if we failed them in different ways. So that's the real message of it. For me, it's a very personal book, even though it's blood and it's guts and it's like faces being ripped off and eaten and all kinds of stuff that we love to do together.
What about you, Greg? What do you feel like the story is about for you?
For me, it's just fun stuff to draw.
Okay.
I've always, had a fun time with working with Scott. So, he gives me plenty of fun things to draw. So for me, it's just about, having a good time in that regard. So what it's about for me is, as you said, the blood and guts of the face getting ripped off. But, it has all these emotional elements. And, as the older I get, the more I enjoy drawing that sort of thing, too, because as you go through life and gain more and more experience, you're able to tap into a broader library of that stuff, right? And so, as an example, like a parent-child relationship. Now, before I, raised my wife's kids, I really didn't have much information on that. So, dealing with this father-daughter relationship, even though I raised two boys, I come from, a background of some experience on that. So the more life experience you have, the more you can draw on that library, and the rest is just the good, cool fun that makes you want to draw comics. When you're growing up and flipping through the page and see all that exciting stuff. So, so I have everything. Scott gives me a full plate.
You both have certainly collaborated before. So, but what put you together on this? Did Scott approach Greg? Greg approached Scott? Like, how did you guys end up meeting again for this project?
Well, when you say meeting again, we've never parted ways. I mean, and Scott and I, we're like, we see ourselves as a long-term team. Aside from fans seeming to like us together, we like being together. So we're close friends, and so just because we stop doing something doesn't mean we're not together. Or if one of us is doing something else, it doesn't mean that we're ever really apart. We're always talking about what we're going to be doing next, whether it's, a creator-owned thing, which this is, and we've talked about that, for a while, or it's doing something for the big two, or, so we're always together, so it's never a matter of getting back together is what I'm trying to say. So
this guy, Greg's my best friend. Like, there's rarely a day that goes by where we don't text each other or send each other some stupid meme or whatever, talk, crap to each other about stuff. So we're never really apart in that way. He's family to me, and whether we're working on something or we're not, I think we consider ourselves a team for life.
So you got god folk, right? And you have demon folk, right? As an artist, Greg, how are you coming up with these demons? Is there a conversation you two are having, or are you just letting the pen do the talking, or does it come from somewhere else? Like, how do you visualize such a thing?
Well, I think like from the beginning, Scott wanted it to be, that our demons were recognizable as being our demons. He had a couple ideas that he threw at me, and I tried going in that direction, and whatever would have been okay, I guess. But all of a sudden, I was thinking about different creatures that we see in the wild, that have like a false set of eyes, to scare off predators and stuff. And so that became the direction I went with them, to give them an extended plate that had false eyes. So now that became like the signature look. And so that was the identifying factor that I added. So once I did that, then I felt like the demons could take any form you wanted them to look. Get as bizarre and crazy as you want. I've got one where they have biting boobs. So, if you had those two false eyes, there are demons. So that's how that took place.
Going off that for a second, I think one of the great things about the way that Greg works is like, or we work together, is that he'll come up with something amazing like that, and then it sparks my imagination. So essentially, it's about a girl who discovers that her father, who's this small town preacher, is actually part of a secret organization that's been hunting demons for centuries called the Glories, and that he was sort of the John Wick of this group, and that his partner was someone who's like a semi-demon, this huge hulking guy named Gus, who's part of a tribe that was extinct long ago. And so she finds herself like cast into this whole battle between good and evil. And the way that you get your blade to light up in this world to be able to fight a demon is to have faith in something. And so she has to find her own form of faith. But the thing that I love about what Greg did with that design for the demon was that once he came up with that false set of eyes, it gave me the idea to have the demons have this almost kind of hive mind, or this hive sort of evil connection between them, where if the person knew you in life, they know all of that stuff still. And so they see you and they're looking at you in a way that's terrifying. And to use those eyes that he drew on the head symbolically, so that if you're facing off with a demon, that demon is going to say things to you that sounds true and awful about yourself, about the world. They know secrets about you, all of that. So it's like those false eyes looking at you and saying, I'm not false. I know the truth, and I'm going to tell it to you, So it's like it's a great back and forth. I mean, I think Greg's the best in the business when it comes to design and when it comes to emotion and acting and all of it, which I think sometimes people overlook because his action sequences and the gore and the horror is so great. But it sparks my imagination to be able to be like, you know what, I can push myself as a storyteller, because I know he's going to come up with things that are, just are going to elevate all my ideas and then make me want to be better on the second pass. So it's been a real joy. It's been what I've been waiting to do and looking forward to doing for the whole 10 years that we've been working together.
This is your first as a creative duo. Like, you will both have done create your own stuff individually, but have you noticed any differences during the iteration of your work together, this iteration of your work together, versus working at DC or somewhere else?
I mean, the only thing that feels different is, you're not, you don't have any confines, it's like, not that we had a lot of confines, at DC, because, when you have the good fortune of having such strong fan support, that allows you to, have a little bit more freedom than maybe some other people might have when you work for the big two. With this, there's nothing, because there's nothing you can do wrong, and there's nobody who could tell you that you've done it wrong, because you're creating it from scratch. So whatever you say really goes. It's the same relationship between Scott and I, just even more free.
The funny thing is, as much as being on a character like Batman is like, again, like an honor and a thrill, there's so many factors that you don't think about going into it that are just pressures, and there's fans have ideas of what the character should be, and everybody has a competing notion. And so, like Greg said, I think the benefit of this is almost like we have the total freedom of not having that grind and that pressure. But on top of that, like, nobody can tell us, like, well, there's the continuity, or your character would do this instead of that because we made him up.
Right.
There's no argument like that, Batman wouldn't do that. It's like, well, you don't know. We made this character up.
And this was originally released digitally, but now it's getting a physical release through Dark Horse, and it's going to comic shops this March. What made you want to do this through Dark Horse specifically?
Oh, I love Dark Horse, man. I mean, they've published so many things that I've been inspired by over the years, from a licensed stuff to Hellboy and so on. But what it really boiled down to was we wanted it. You know, when the pandemic hit, I think Greg and I both had a lot of, a lot of options. We're very lucky to have options about going back to Marvel or DC, or doing things, kickstarting them, doing all those kinds of things, because we've been lucky enough to have a career that fans have been so supportive of. But we wanted to do something that we both felt, I think, would sort of hopefully carve a strong path in the industry for something new. And one of the big things that I felt has been wrong with the industry for a while in comics is the sort of separation of digital and print, and the way that they're forced to be competitive a lot of the time, where digital is just a distribution arm of print largely, and the price is the same, the release date is the same, and you have to buy them single issue, and it forces you to choose. And what Comixology was pitching to me, and they had just made this deal with Dark Horse, so there weren't any books out yet that spanned that, that came out digital and then print, was that we're going to do it digitally, and you can subscribe to Comixology and read all of the books for the price of one and browse like a library. And then when they come out in print, we'll do them slightly differently with different back matter and we'll make them something special, and they'll have a different price point, all that stuff. And it felt to me like, with the pandemic and all of these kinds of challenges facing the comic industry, doing something we believed in that would say, hey, digital can be an awesome on-ramp for print. You can browse the way my kids do with manga and with comics too, and webtoons, all of it. Like, they love looking digitally and then going to the store and buying the thing they want for their shelf, physically. And I believe in that model. So here we're really proud to be the first book that's digital from Comixology and then single issue. So we're not just coming out with trades for Dark Horse either. We're doing things that we really feel will help the kind of things that you always support with previews, like the direct market. We have variant covers. We've got special back matter, all that stuff, so that retailers can say, from this team that's been a big direct market seller for us, we're not just doing a trade. We've got single issues with cool stuff to sell in the shop. So we felt like it was something that would hopefully create a template, or offer one example of how digital and print can work together to strengthen the industry going forward.
Creatively, for both of you, right? That's kind of difficult, right? Formatting for digital, or did you always have the physical? You always had the physical release in mind. So specifically for Greg, have you ever drawn specifically for digital first? Have you ever done that before, or was this like a difficult transition?
If you look what I did with Batman issue 5, clearly I've never given any mind or thought to
Fair enough. Fair enough.
No, the only thing that I've done consciously, and much to the dismay of my inker and even myself, is because with digital you can zoom in so much. So when I'm doing and I mean very small, tiny figures and faces, I force myself to go more anal and perfect with that, because somebody could just go whoop and blow it up so large, kind of ridiculous, because you never could do that. And so what was acceptable and still would be acceptable in a print format, in the back of my mind, I'm going, oh Christ, I got to get the microscopic surgical tools out now, because somebody could just expand this thing and it'll look like shit when you get it too big, right? So I got to put a little more. And Jonathan just, he cries on my shoulder, and I have to always remind him, I went down this path of thorns first. You're just following behind me, right? So, but he had to get his thing, and I used to tell him, because he would have trouble at the beginning. I go, you got to think of it like a tattoo artist, man. You got to like take your point and just dab until you get it together. And so now he's got it. But that's really the only consideration, that I've given. Especially, I mean, you put the lock button, you can get through issue 5 a Batman, or if you could just put your iPad on the floor and walk around. So, my thing is only about the detail aspect, really. That's the only conscious thing I've done.
It was so detailed. It was awesome. I mean, I felt bad for you and Jonathan, but he made Greg so one of our main characters, Gus. So he's like I said, he's part demon. He's from a tribe of humanity that was dates all the way back to like Neanderthals, and they were wiped out by this demon virus, and he's one of the last ones that survived in this iceberg. and the demon virus was like halted halfway through. So he's this big hulking, demonic figure. But he also has like a really hairy chest. Greg drew him with a hairy chest.
I drew my chest.
Yeah, and so like I would see Jonathan's process. It was like a million hairs, like every little hair of the chest. It was like you couldn't have waxed this dude. You know what I mean? Like,
hey, shout out to the inkers.
Yeah, John and Dave, the colorist, they both were amazing on it. They're a great team.
Who is We Have Demons for? And I'll let you go first, Scott.
I mean, I know it sounds hokey, but it's for everybody. Again, I think one of the things during the pandemic, because it was when it really first hit that Greg and I started working on it in earnest. That I one of the silver linings, like I said, was kind of watching things with my kids, but my teenage son, for example, and rediscovering all those things like Transformers and G.I. Joe, and then watching anime that he loves, and realizing how much connection there is. So for me, I wanted to write something that adults could read and take a message from about sort of letting go of trying to have your kids feel the same way about the world that you did, or have the same kind of hope or faith that you had. But then to kids also being like, you have to find your own and celebrate that. Whatever gets you to believe that you can change things and make things better despite the challenges facing you, you find that and you hold on to it, and it'll make the blade that you hold metaphorically glow and give you a weapon to cut through the darkness. So, I wanted it to be something that has it's definitely a little R-rated. I mean, it's got the demons, the way the demons talk, they curse all the time. So warning, like a slight advisory language thing. And there's definitely some gore, but I was raised in the 80s, man. My dad took me to Terminator when I was 6, and Die Hard. I think I was 11, so I'm just saying puts hair on your chest, lots of hair, just like the demon himself. So I would say that it's genuinely, we wanted to write something that feels like it's for everyone. Lamb is a character that I love. She's strong and independent and finds her own way and carves a path that I think is inspiring. So yeah, absolutely. I'm really, really excited to see what people think. I wanted to make the book with Greg something that would appeal to adults, but also appeal to teenagers and that stuff, and be a bridge. And that's what it's about. It's about, like I said, it's kind of a love letter between a dad and a daughter about, him wanting her to have the faith that he had, despite the fact that the world's darker, and her realizing it's okay that if she doesn't, but she can find a new kind of faith for herself that's going to work for her.
Greg, looking forward, what can readers expect from We Have Demons?
I mean, it's a fun ride. I mean, like Scott just said, I mean, there's something for everybody. There's adult matter, and there's things that'll appeal to, teenagers, and then, who doesn't like monsters? I mean, right? We all love monsters. So there's something for everybody. It's got the serious stuff. It's got playful stuff. It's got some humor, and it's got cool monsters and bloodshed. And we like all of that.
Should we expect more stories from the world of horns and halos, or is this a one and done?
No, I mean, the hope is to continue it. I think, we're both really conscious, I think, of wanting to see what people think. So it's my favorite thing that we've done. I mean, I love it dearly. I put it up there with the absolute favorite things that I've ever been a part of. So I'm confident that people will respond to it. And if they do, and and they like it, and it does well, then I'd love to continue it, whether we go right back and do another arc, or Greg writes something with me for someone else. But it's a world that I'd love to keep exploring with him. So it's not a closed door in that regard. But he's going to do the Creech now, which is going to be amazing. I've seen it. It's going to blow everybody away. And then we'll decide where we are. Again, I think the joy of being on the other side of being exclusive or contracted to a big 2 company is that we can make all these decisions now for ourselves. So it's you know what, we want to go back and do a one shot if We Have Demons 20-page thing. Great. No, we're going to do an arc. Okay, great. Or you know what, we're going to do something else then come back. Maybe we'll do something that's I'll write something, or Greg will co-write it with me for some whatever. It's all, we can make those decisions as we go, and there's a tremendous joy and freedom to that. So yeah, no, it's definitely not a closed book, in that way.
We Have Demons is in comic shops March 23rd from Dark Horse. It has 3 covers, one by Capullo, one by Jock, and a foil cover by Capullo. So definitely pick up whichever one you want, or pick up all 3 if you can. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it.
We had a
It's
blast.
always great. It's always great talking to you, man.
I appreciate it, man. I really do. And again, March 23rd for the hard-headed out there watching right now. Be sure to reserve your copy with Previews Roll Pull Box or at your local comic shop. I'm sure Jeffrey Allen. This has been Comic Talk with Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder. Thanks for watching, guys.